Hey, y'all. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Unfeigned the podcast. I'm Jay. I'm your host. And before we dive into this episode, I think it would be a good idea if I recapped a little bit. Excuse me. So I think it's really good for us um, to kind of re-examine our vision for things. I think it's excellent to do that. It just in general, anyway, whether it's for your family, for yourself, personal goals, for your career, if you manage people, if you're directing something, really re-examining your vision is crucial to keeping the vision alive, right? The Bible says that without vision, the people die, right? And I think it's a good idea. One, I mean, it's a good idea to have a vision for whatever the issue is, right? So I think it's great to have a vision, but it's so important to re-examine that vision. And so from time to time, we should go back and we should examine our vision, where our original purpose was or what our original vision was, and see if it needs to be adjusted or tweaked or adapted. I just think it's a good practice. And now there's a difference between vision and mission. I get that. Maybe we'll do that on another episode. But for the purposes of this episode, I would like to kind of revisit the vision for this podcast. If you've been with me along this journey, if you've been listening from the beginning, then you know, I'm pretty sure I've said it somewhere along the line, but you know that the vision or the purpose of this podcast is to tell my story, right? To help people, right? So this podcast is the last 9 years. Now, my story starts prior to 9 years ago. I get that. But this podcast focuses on the last 9 years and beyond, and so on. And so my original purpose for this podcast and the reason why I wanted to do a podcast was because I wanted to use my story in hopes of helping someone else, right? Over the last 9 years, I've experienced growth. I've experienced healing, maturity, redemption, restoration, and God has used my story to get me to this place. And my hope in starting this podcast was that I could use my story, I could tell my story and hope that it would help someone walk in their rewritten story. Because God has been rewriting my story over the last 9 years. And within that rewritten story, that unmasked story, I've experienced all these things, right? And this podcast is primarily about healing, but I've experienced all of those things: growth, healing, maturity, redemption, restoration. And I prayed for this podcast, and I hope that my story is able to help even just one person walk into their healing, into their rewritten story, their unmasked story. So that's been the vision of this podcast. And I'm not going to get into all the nuances of that, but it's just really good to revisit this vision. And if you've been with me for a while, you know that. You probably heard me talk about this already. If you're just joining us, if you're just tuning in, it's good to talk about the vision and share the vision with people, right? And it will be good to do this from time to time. And I think it's important that when you're revisiting your vision, when you're going to re-examine your vision, that it's good to name it, that it's good to say it, that it's good to talk about it, and that keeps the vision alive, right? So I wanted to share that briefly before we dive into this episode. Part of that vision for this episode or for this podcast, part of my quote unquote why, my reason for doing this, involved this podcast being raw and unedited. Now, if you know me, you know that's what I prefer. I would much rather be raw and unedited than be scripted and robotic. I am not saying anything about any other podcasts that put a lot of time and effort into the script and the editing. And listen, there are fantastic podcasts out there, and I listen to a lot of them, and it works. And for the person hosting the podcast, doing the podcast, they've found a process that works for them. And there's a specific reason and a vision and a purpose for why they're doing what they're doing. For me, there was a very specific reason and a purpose and a vision for why I was doing what I wanted to do. And that involved being raw and unedited. This podcast is my unmasked story. It's my rewritten story. For the longest time, for most of my life, I hid. And this is my journey of stepping out from behind the mask and no longer hiding. Now, I'm going to be vulnerable and transparent. And for me, for this podcast, I felt like I had to be raw and unedited, real, just truthful, honest. And so that's what this podcast is. And there's pros and cons to both, I guess, right? Like there's benefits to scripting out what you're going to say and editing and piecing it together. And there's downfalls to that. There's benefits to being raw and unedited and not scripting anything out and turning on the mic and here we go. And there's also probably disadvantages to that. But for me and my podcast, I feel that this is the best way to do that. So that's the vision for this podcast. That's a little bit of a recap, a revisit to the vision to let you know kind of the core of this podcast. But on today's episode, I really want to get into like just some raw emotion. I've had some conversations over the past couple of days, and it's got me thinking about myself and my story. And over the last 9 years, a lot of things have happened. I've gone through a lot. I've overcome a lot. I've come out on the other side of a lot. But it got me thinking about what it was like being in it. Based on some of these conversations that I've had, it got me thinking about how it was when I was in those situations. So I've been trying to put myself in the place of these people, which is easy for me to do because I was there. And so I just have been trying to feel again what they've been feeling, right? Not because I want to be at that dark place or that rough spot or that depressing state or whatever, but I don't know, maybe just to empathize. And my heart's been broken as I'm thinking about these people. And I guess on this episode, I just want to talk a little bit about that because a lot of this podcast is about my story of healing. The beginning episodes, in the beginning of this podcast, like the start of this podcast, those episodes were telling the story, right? But from here on out, the podcast has been about healing and things that I've learned and lessons that I learned from those times and you know, stories of growth and healing and even in the beginning episodes, I don't know that I clearly communicated what it felt like. Maybe I did. I have to go back and listen, but on this episode, I just want to connect. I want to connect with those of you who are going through something tough. You know, I don't know what it is. Some of you have communicated things to me. But I don't know what you might be going through. And it may be similar to things that you've heard me talk about, what I've went through. It may be things that I haven't talked about or shared. But I want to connect for a second with those of you who may be going through something really tough. And I remember, regardless of what it is that's causing this really difficult situation, I remember how it felt. Like it just felt unfair, right? Life just sucked. Now, there were pieces, there were glimpses of life that didn't suck. Just because I was going through whatever I was going through didn't mean I couldn't celebrate things from time to time. But I just felt like I had to slap on a smile. I had to get up, I had to dust myself off, and I had to keep pushing through. There was a podcast that I used to listen to a lot back in the day. And, I've listened, and it was a married couple. And I still, even today, I still listen to the man's podcast that he does, and things that he'll put out in clips. And so I still listen, but he used to talk about, when you're going through things like this and you're trying to heal, and you just do, you just get up and you push through it, right? You strap up your boots and you go and do, and you push through it. And I just remember doing that. I remember it being like that because it hurt so bad. There was so much pain. The pain that I felt was both of my own doing. There were choices that I made. There were decisions that I made that led to certain outcomes that caused a lot of pain. There was also pain that I felt that was not of my fault at all. It came from an outside source, another person or whatever, or something was happening in life. And so I just remember feeling both sides of that kind of pain, and on top of that, with the pain that was caused by my decisions, man, I felt regret, shame, embarrassment. I felt depressed, felt like a loser. And even top it off more, there was nothing I could do about it. I couldn't go back. I couldn't go back and make a different decision, change my mind, right? Never do what I did. And so it just felt so heavy, and the shame and guilt of it all was crushing. The pain that I felt from things that I didn't cause directly from my own choices or decisions or actions, well, that was just unfair. Like, why? This is unfair. I didn't ask for this. I'm actually asking for the opposite, and it's still happening. And so I remember what it felt like dealing with all of that. The point of this episode isn't to just tell you, hey, I know how you're feeling. I know what you're going through. I've been where you're at. Now, while all of that is true, because I do know how you're feeling, I know what you're going through. I have been where you're at. The point of this episode is to share one simple thing that I failed miserably at during those times of my darkest moments. At the times where I was at my lowest, the pain was so bad, the weight was so heavy. All of the things, the shame, the regret, the guilt, everything that I was feeling felt like it was destroying me. And yet, while I was feeling all that, I didn't fully allow myself to feel all of that. You see, I just kept going. Things had to be done. Life had to be lived. And obviously, everyone's lives are different. But I wasn't going to just sit there and do nothing and just wallow in my depression. So this was my mentality, and this is how I failed miserably. So I pushed through. Every day I pushed through. Now, disclaimer, don't get it twisted, because I think there is some merit in that. I think there's power in being able to push through and being able to push yourself past all the mess. Okay, but there's an appropriate time and place for that. And maybe we'll get into that on this episode, maybe on another episode. But my mentality was, I just got to keep going. I got to keep going. I'm going to slap on this smile. When people ask me how I'm doing, I'm going to say, I'm good. That was like my famous phrase, right? I'm good. How you doing? I'm good. Right? And people would, and most people would, that's where it would end. Most people would be like, because if we're being honest, right? Most of us, now I have worked really hard not to be like this, but I used to do the same thing. But most people don't really want to know how you're doing, right? They say, how you doing? But they're not expecting to stand there and have a conversation about how you're actually doing. So I've tried real hard, side note, I've tried really hard not to just pass somebody and be like, hey, how you doing? Unless I'm really asking and I want that person to stop and tell me how they're doing and we have a conversation. So I'll just be like, hey, or hi. But most people, when they would say, how you doing? And I'd be like, I'm good. That it would stop there. But some people took it a tiny step further and they would say, are you sure? Like, how are you really doing? And I'd be like, no, I'm good. For real. I'm good. For real, I'm good. And for the most part, that's where it ended with everyone. And I wasn't good. I wasn't okay. But my mentality was I just had to keep pushing through. I had to get through it, right? And you say things like that to yourself. You say, oh, I'll be all right. I'll be good. I'll be okay. I'll be all right. Everything will be good. Everything will work out. You know inside you don't feel like that. There might be a part of you that feels like that. And that's what I'm talking about as when I say the appropriate time and place for that kind of stuff, that mentality. That is a good mentality. Right. But in its healed version, it's a good mentality. In its brokenness, it's not. Because then you're lying to yourself. So I convinced myself that I was okay on the outside. On the inside, I knew I wasn't okay. I knew what I was feeling. I was feeling all the things I just mentioned. And I wasn't okay. And I so badly wanted to just spill it all onto somebody. I honestly wanted to tell somebody the truth. When they said, Jay, how you doing? I wanted to say, I feel like I'm dying. I feel like I can't go on anymore. I can't take it. I can't do this anymore. I just wanted to allow myself to grieve. If we think about what we're going through and what it costs us, and it's different for everybody, even the things that are out of our control, even the things that are happening to us that are just so unfair, and I get it. I'm there with you. I get it. It's not fair. Even in that, there's a loss. We've lost something. And so we're going through this tough time, this rough patch, this dark place. There's a loss. And too often, and I failed miserably at this. And that's why I can talk about it like this now. Because I came to a point where I learned, well, I shouldn't even say learned. I came to the point where I finally allowed myself to grieve. And I'm afraid that most people don't give themselves permission to be broken. Don't give themselves permission, I shouldn't say to be broken, but to feel broken. They don't give themselves permission to not be okay, to not feel okay. They don't give themselves permission to grieve. And here's what it looked like for me. For the longest time, I just pushed through. Right? Put on that smile. Tell everybody, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, I'll be all right. I'm good. And inside, I'm dying. I'm wasting away. And then finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I really just couldn't take it anymore. And I don't even know that I made the decision to allow myself to grieve, which unfortunately, I could have gotten to this place so much sooner if I would have just allowed myself to feel not okay. To give myself permission that it's okay to not be okay. And if I would have just allowed myself to sit in it for a second, for just a moment, and grieve, however that would look like for me. And grief looks different for everybody. I get it. Grief is not only if someone died and you lost a loved one, although that is, it's, the loss of yourself, the loss of a marriage, this sense that you're not who you thought you should be or who you want to be, or like, there's the extreme big ones, right? When someone dies, you grieve the loss of someone. But any loss, a breakup, like divorce, right? Addiction. I mean, the list can go on and on and on, but these are all moments that require grief. It's part of the healing process. And unless you allow yourself to step into that process, you're going to hold your healing back. I could have been here way sooner. I could have gotten to a place a lot sooner, but I just never allowed myself permission to do that. I wouldn't allow myself to sit in the mess and be okay with not being okay and just grieve. But then one day, I just couldn't take it anymore. And it all came out. Man, it was like a dam broke. And it was like uncontrollable. And I just broke down. And I was crying. I was screaming. Like, I was yelling at God. I was yelling at myself. I was yelling at people. No one was even there. And I'm like going off. I'm screaming, I'm crying, I'm yelling, I'm begging for forgiveness and apologizing and repenting. And it was at that moment that I learned how necessary that was for me to heal. And y'all, I felt like while I still felt those things, I still was walking through these things. I was still healing on this healing journey, but I almost felt like I wasn't carrying the weight of it anymore. I still felt it. Circumstances still were what they were. It's not like all of a sudden I came out of that, state of mind or whatever that I was in. It's like when I was done screaming, yelling, and crying, that all of a sudden life just handed me blessings upon blessings and everything changed. It's not the case at all. But for my healing, something had happened. And now I felt like I wasn't necessarily carrying the weight of it all. And it's crazy, but it made it that much easier to walk through into my healing. And it was just that simple act of allowing myself to grieve, allowing myself to be in the mess, right? The guy who I mentioned his podcast, he used to say something. He had a saying. He used to say, "Embrace the suck." And it wasn't until I did. It wasn't until I actually began to embrace the suck that I was able to heal. And I let myself sit in it. And I let myself be in it. And I didn't try to hide whatever feelings needed to come out, whatever emotions needed to come out, whatever outbursts needed to come out. I didn't try to hold that back. I didn't try to squelch it. I didn't try to hide it. And that was a tremendously transformative moment in my healing journey. So y'all, I know what you're going through. I know how you feel, and I've been there. I know how your heart is breaking. I know that you feel guilt. I know that you feel shame, regret. I know you feel it's unfair. I know you feel scared. I know there's the unknown is staring you straight in the face. I know how you feel. And I know it sucks. And I know it's unfair. I know you wish you could go back. I know you wish things were different. All of those things may pertain to different people because we're all going through different things. I just want you to know, I understand. I get it. I've been there. And I just hope that something about this part of my story can encourage you. If you have never given yourself permission to just be in it, just to sit in it, if you've never given yourself permission to grieve it, if you've never allowed yourself to be not okay and let whatever emotions have to come out, whatever feelings, whatever outbursts, whatever needs to come out of your body, whatever needs to happen for you to sit in the mess and to grieve and to allow yourself to be there, I would encourage you to do it. Get by yourself. Start to think about these things. Start to talk about it out loud to yourself. Really lean into it. Really step into it and allow yourself, whatever your body does in that grieving moment, let it happen. I would encourage you to do that. And then when you feel like you've released all that you needed to release, take the next step into healing. Because after you release all this, you don't have to carry it anymore. You don't have to carry it anymore. Now you can step into healing. And it's still going to be rough. Still things you got to work through. But it'll be less heavy. It'll be a little bit lighter. And you'll see that parts of these things in your life will start to heal. And if you've already done that for yourself, or you're in the midst of doing that for yourself, man, that's awesome. Don't give up. Don't give up. Keep fighting. Because on the other end of that is your healing. And y'all, if any of you want to talk to me any more about that, you have questions, if you want to know specific things I did, I would love to connect with you. Email me at unfeignedpodcast@gmail.com or send me a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. But connect with me. Let's connect. And if you don't, that's fine too. I just appreciate that you're listening. I love that y'all are coming along with me on this journey. But y'all, I definitely want to connect. I want to hear your story. I want to share more of my story just in hopes that it might even encourage one person even. So y'all, connect with me, email me, DM me. Until next time, we'll see you then.